Well, hello there, everybody. Today with me is CJ, my good friend CJ. A lot of people around the Zilliqa space know you, CJ, and you're on a couple of other chains as well. Just how you doing today, CJ?
Morning. Yeah, good. Thank you. Pleasure to join you today.
Thanks for joining me, Rodrigo. Yeah. We've talked. Well, maybe we've had. I think we had a couple of 2 or 3 phone calls, and that was it, or Telegram or whatever.
Yep. Yeah, a couple of Telegram
NFTs, if I remember. Now, you and I talk about every day or every other day or so, but in terms of live talking, it's been, I think, a few phone calls.
Going unscripted.
Yeah, completely unscripted. This has just become the social hour, but Rodrigo is going to be out on vacation this week and next, and CJ has so graciously jumped in and is joining us. And I'll tell you what's interesting about today is, not just a Zilliqa show, not just a crypto show, but CJ, you have a wealth of knowledge around the fields of mining and DeFi in crypto. Some of the conversations that I mentioned before we've had on the phone are about NFTs of all things. So what's your primary focus in crypto right now, and sort of why?
So I two things really. I am predominantly a yield farmer. Take my little yield hat with me everywhere I go. And that's my predominant area that I focus on in terms of everything. I'm not a big capital appreciation fan, so capital appreciation is great, but I live by the mantra that the number of tokens you hold is more important than the price you've brought in necessarily. So gaining yield is kind of my sole goal. I run
Is that
a
is that driven from some philosophy underlying it? Is it because you've had losses in the past, or is it just a core philosophy of this is how I do crypto?
It's just a core philosophy of this is how I do crypto. I think holding a token that doesn't earn you money or earn you yield, should I say, is you're missing, in my opinion, gains that everyone should be making. No matter what token you hold. I mean, even USD, you're yielding at 20% in Anchor. So there's no excuse to be not growing units at any point in time.
Yeah. I agree with that. I don't know if it's my primary. Yeah. But you were mentioning some of the things you do in this space. Let me get you back to that and stop interrupting you for a moment.
So yield farming. I run a business here in the UK as well. The sole goal of the business is mining. So that business in the UK as well is a mining business. It's only small, obviously hoping to grow, but that was started as well. Yield farming as well. That started as a yield farming business, but it's moved to physical hardware as well.
Physical hardware. So I think a lot of people are interested in that. Walk us through some of what you're comfortable sharing about the physical hardware side of it. You know, maybe not necessarily what exactly you're running, but just something about that side of blockchain and DLT.
Yes. So currently I run a number of GPU mining rigs, all dual mining ETH and Zil. So the recent run up was nice in Zil, and the sole purpose of that is as bad as it sounds, Zil covers the costs.
Yeah.
And that means that as a business, we don't necessarily have to sell the ETH that we mine.
Yeah. And are you maximizing for one or the other, or does it change sort of from time to time?
So I mine through Ezil, the pool, Ezil's pool. You don't get a choice. I think Zil's mined 1 minute every 90 minutes, and they just the pool automatically flicks you over and mines one and then the other. But yeah, they just sit around and they heat the house in the winter and earn money basically.
I do look. I like this philosophy because it seems like you're coming from this that crypto should be earning definitely the residual income, passive income type of thing.
Yep.
Were you in that world prior to crypto? Right? Is this your first experience with passive earning, or is this some type of philosophy that comes from something before crypto, or did crypto open your eyes to
it? Crypto opened my eyes to the volume of earning that's possible. I mean, there's no excuse for, in my opinion, anyone not to be. There's no need for a bank account, right? You can just change your payslip to UST, chuck it into Anchor, and you're earning 20% yield. Even if it's £100 or $100, you're still earning 20% yield. Whereas in your bank account, you're effectively being taxed through inflation. So it's come from a desire not to be left behind.
Well, that's good. I mean, it's hard for me. I think it's hard for me to jump on board with you don't need a bank account. I know it's true. I don't disagree with it at all, but I wonder if some of us have a harder time letting go of it. I mean, we see that with all sorts of tech adoption, right? Like, I know I don't need that VHS player sitting around, but somebody has one somewhere. And I wonder if I'm sort of having that with bank accounts, because when I look at my bank accounts, there's nothing that they're really doing for me that I can't replace with some newer, more modern form with better rewards, better returns, better cashback. So how far do you take that? I mean, I know this is a personal question, and I'm not trying to just, grill you for some period of time here, but I am curious, how far do you take that? Does that apply only to your business, or are are you exploring personally, saying, you know what, maybe I don't need to deal with the bank so much?
I think if once you feel comfortable with, and look, crypto is all about in dipping your toe in, feeling comfortable, and then working out at what point on the risk curve you're willing to kind of branch out to.
Right.
But I mean, something like Anchor is foundational now, right? I mean, the deeper risk on UST is there, but it's fairly minimal now, especially since LFG are obviously putting Bitcoin into back up the peg. But it's
a nice large amount, right? I forget what the amount was, but I mean, they were the amount they were rounding by, I was jealous of.
Yeah, I mean, just to divide it by 1 million, and I'll be comfortable putting that in every month. But yeah, it's it's.
No, I don't. I don't want to get your entire list, but you're not just in Ether and Zill, but also it seems like Terra. You know, I excuse me, still getting over that cold. Don't know if you're advocating for it or if it's more of a personal decision, but you're right. Effectively 20%, just a little bit less on Terra with just staking your UST. It gets to that point to where is there much purpose to simply accumulating and holding a token that's not doing anything? Sure, you can wait for that moonshot. And CJ, I don't know about you. I mean, I've been the beneficiary of a few moonshots. I imagine you probably have as well. They're nice.
Yep.
But let me go find my favorite. Hold on, let me go find my favorite splash. Not financial advice, but if I happen to be talking to a good friend and they said which path should I go, I don't know. You have a really good point that leans me towards probably quantity of token, and then hope for an increase in price, or at least a slow enough decrease to offset inflation.
Yeah, and I think that's
or inflation.
It's risk curve, right? It's people picking where they're willing to take risk, how much risk they're willing to take, and being responsible with it as well. And getting somebody into crypto, UST, in my opinion, it's not flashy, it's not fun, but sitting there saying, well, you've got £100 in your bank, you've got $100 in your bank, put it into UST, earn your 20% yield on it. It's not a lot of money, but guess what? You're outpacing inflation. You can take it out when you want. You can do whatever you want with it, whenever you want. Why wouldn't you try crypto?
Yeah, and I think it's hard for a lot of non-crypto people to wrap their heads around. They go, 20% return sounds too good to be true. And I think we're conditioned to think that because we're used to, what is it, like 0.3% return on a standard, at least US savings account now. It's abysmal. But I think one of the things we can be helpful with is trying to explain, like, look, there is risk. There's inherent risk in putting the money in your bank as well, as we've seen with recent global conflict. But I think what a lot of people are missing, and maybe you can even help me understand this to a deeper level, is that it's the algorithmic coin. It's the staking of other tokens, and therefore the lending, the borrowing, the repay of that borrowing of whether it's UST, whether it's Luna, whatever it is, it's that repaying process, which is for the most part paying that yield, right? Or supporting it. They also do invest in other chains that are producing a yield. So there is a little bit of crypto exposure there. But I think, is there any way that we can help folks who are on the outside who know us maybe from the tech world and say, oh, I hear you talking about it. How do we help those folks realize 20% is not too good to be true necessarily? There are inherent risks, but it's not, some shady endeavor.
It's look, people got to jump in, and I think you can, when you speak to somebody and say, look, with me anyway, people are, oh, you're always talking about crypto, you this, you that. Wife especially is sick of it.
You get that too. Do you talk about anything else?
I'm
not alone. I'm not alone in that.
But it's explaining to people, look, this is possible. There is risk, not, like the splash says, it's not financial advice, but why don't you try it? What have you got to lose? Unless you're living paycheck to paycheck, unless you've got literally every penny you get in going out every month, what have you got to lose by taking the risk?
Yeah, and I think you're right. Even £100 investment, $100 investment, €100, whatever. I think you can start with that relatively little, so to speak. I know that's not a small amount to some people, but I think if you try it, right, it can, not financial advice, but it can become a smaller amount. You can start to see the larger financial system. But there are a lot of questions that I personally don't know how to answer, and I don't know if you do, that I don't know how to answer about, well, is it sustainable in the long run? Because we did see, even, with Terra, them having to have a larger capital investment to be able to shore up those Bitcoin reserves, to be able to do all of that. And there is a valid question. Is it always going to take that? Or, and even I feel a little bit uncomfortable with that. What's your sense on it?
So I think particularly with Terra and Anchor at the moment, the 20% is a loss leader, right? It's right. Let's get people in. It's a marketing budget at the moment.
Yeah, get in there so we can lend you some money.
Yeah. It's effectively that. It's we need people interested in Terra. We need people interested in UST. We need people taking UST on, and we need people trusting UST. As such, we have a 500 million, which sounds massive but isn't in the grand scheme of things, budget of UST that we are willing to lose, for all intents and purposes, to get people to get adoption effectively. Yeah. And with adoption brings trust. With trust brings more adoption, and so the curve goes up. And look, it's not sustainable at the moment. I don't think there's any argument in that. 20% is not sustainable, right, which is why the votes passed to reduce it by 1.5% a month down to, I think, 15% eventually, to make the platform sustainable. But the idea is to bring people in and to show people that actually, you know what, it's not scary. It's not
scary. It's not.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it's not stealing your money. I think a lot of people do have concerns about algorithmic coins because, I run across a number of people in the space who are absolute brilliant minds in crypto, and they still are a little bit at a loss of understanding the algorithmic side of, okay, well, if we need more supply of this stable coin, we burn another token. If we have too much, we mint that other token. And that's really, it's an elegant, beautiful solution. And it does do a lot of good value for the other token, in this case, Luna, when we're talking about Terra. But my understanding in the long run, and again, I'm not an expert on the lending and borrowing part, but my understanding is that at some point, you're not going to be paid to take the loan. At some point, there's going to be, right, some cost to it that right now, as you mentioned, we're in an unsustainable loss leader, let's drive adoption type of mode. And at some point in the future, you can expect to pay some percent on your loan. Is that your sense too?
Yes. So I think, so obviously the earn section is the biggest section within Anchor. That's where you can deposit your USD. You're not loaning it. You're not anything. It's effectively a crypto savings account, for want of a better term.
Yeah.
Under the borrow section at the moment, I mean, it's a positive APR because they give you ANC, right? They give you ANC token.
The governance token for the Anchor
governance
platform
token for Anchor protocol, and that's why you get positive yield. You're not positively yielding UST, so it's not stablecoin you're getting. You are getting the governance token and the value of the governance.
Yeah, it's not saying, hey, borrow stablecoins from us and we'll give you more stablecoins.
Yeah, exactly that. It's kind of saying, look, to borrow on Anchor in particular, you have to put Luna, ETH, Sol soon, or Atom soon as well, and you have to over collateralize. And the idea behind it is genius, right? You deposit 100% of your Luna, you can borrow up to 75% against it. But while Anchor Protocol has your Luna, they're staking it and they're earning yield against it, which they can then use to pay the rewards.
Which you're right, then goes to the stablecoin rewards. And honestly, that's the thing. I don't know about you. Again, we're not trying to be about Terra here, but thinking about it, that's the thing that took me to Terra in the first place. It wasn't even the borrowing. It wasn't even the 20% on stables. I wasn't too deep into stables prior, and that this is what changed my mind. Is I saw that they were investing in other chains. They were investing. They were staking those tokens. They were creating this giant behemoth that takes and we talk about quote unquote securing the network through the staking, whether we're proof of stake chains or not. And that's what they were doing. And I think that's what first pulled me to them. Was it something similar for you, or was it more about, with your mining and yield farming, was it more about the yields? Because one of the things you and I have talked about extensively is the mirror protocol.
Yep.
You and I,
So,
you and I
yeah.
both have
So,
an affinity for certain things. I'll leave it for you to bring up if you want to.
Yeah.
But certain things on mirror, we both have an affinity for, and we've talked about that to a degree.
Yeah. So, I mean, mirror is the synthetic asset. So it sounds confusing, but it's when you actually get on board and have a look. And again, this is part of my ethos of go and play. Take a small amount of money you can risk, and go and play. You're clicking buttons, go and learn. Mirror is, for me, was what got me in Terra initially, and that was from our good friend King of Z.
Yeah, good old King of Z.
Him kind of constantly suggesting that you can earn yield on stable-ish assets or synthetic assets, and then once you get involved in that, it's what's a synthetic asset? Well, actually, it's a stock on the blockchain, right? It mimics the price of a stock or a
That's
ETF,
right. If no one's ever encountered that before, you want to know it mimics the price. It follows the price. You don't actually have, that asset, that commodity, that stock, right? You don't own a share of Apple. You own something that is pegged to the price of a share of Apple or whatever else. And so, yeah, that's what took you to Terra. And you jumped into, and I don't know if this was personal or business, so I shouldn't be airing your personal stuff, but I think you were a big fan of delta neutral farming.
Yes.
Are you still, is your business involved in that? Or are you personally, you don't have to specify which, but are you still?
No, I pulled out delta neutral positions because the main reason was I was expecting so my delta neutral positions were in gold and silver. On Mirror.
That's what we share. I have a love of silver.
Yeah, agreed. I think they're brilliant and absolutely love both gold and silver. But yeah,
and they're pretty to look at.
That was where my delta neutral position came from, because the price of gold and silver doesn't move much ever.
Much
relative
to other
annoyance. Yeah. And so the delta neutral position there allowed, and it sounds more complicated than it is. Anyone that's looking at it, Google or YouTube, Mirror, delta neutral solutions. There's really, really good explainer videos on them. But
it sounds really scary, but it's not. You walked me through it initially, as I recall, and it's nowhere near as scary as it sounds. So just to interject for a moment. When we're talking about delta neutral, for anyone who hasn't encountered that, because I hadn't until CJ introduced me to it, it's upside no matter which way you go, right? And as CJ said, you may want to go ahead and Google it and look at it. I don't know if we want to take us. Yeah, it would only be about 20-30 minutes to get filled in on it, but that's not our purpose right now. Yeah. I guess we can if you want. But it's a way to make sure that no matter which way the price of an asset goes, you're going to yield some positive amount. And I think it was absolutely brilliant. That's one of the things Mirror is known for. And so my interjection here can end with, CJ, I really appreciate you introducing me to that, because it's something that I had, I've heard about delta neutral in the past, but I'd never really seen it applied to crypto. And it was just so easy to get into. I tried it a few times. I'm personally not in it. And I know that sounds weird that I love it so much, but I don't do it. But that's, I can talk about why later. I will do it again. There are personal reasons why I'm not in it at the moment.
Yeah, I think that I moved out of it well when Luna dropped, because for me the opportunity was there to pick up Luna at a price that, in my opinion, was stupidly cheap.
What would, I mean, that's a tough one right there. I mean, and again, not trying to harp on Terra, but it's hard to assess Luna price. Luna is that token that's burned or minted in order to control the UST supply, the stablecoin supply. But it's really hard because it has shot up. So I mean, I'll just say, I bought mine. I think it was under $30,
Mm-hmm.
and now we're up over 100 and something. And I keep hearing people. I don't know if they're shilling, if they're hyping, but they're saying, "Oh, it's a really good price." And I do see growth potential for Luna, but it's also hard to believe that okay, we've hit more than a 3x, coming up on a 4x. Right? Like
Yeah,
am I really going to take a
agreed.
bunch
I'm
of
not buying
stables
it.
and put into that? I don't know. What was a really um what was the level where you were just like, you know what, this is just a stupidly good
So
price.
it was the I think it was December Bitcoin dip where the the floor just fell out of the Bitcoin price. Everything followed it,
Yeah.
and I felt that Terra was or Luna, sorry, not Terra. Luna was overly hit for what it was doing. Um, market market cap not going up, token supply. Sorry, market cap not changing, token supply going down. Price can only go one way, right?
Yeah.
So that, and not financial advice, but that was the opportunity that for me was there. And so I pulled out of the delta neutral strategy, cleared it all off, which was yielding decent returns. I think it's about 45% returns, which for a relative risk-free in crypto environment is pretty good. And then moved it all into Terra or into Luna and left it in Luna, basically just sitting there enjoying the capital appreciation at the moment.
So as
And
we
stake.
in about 5 minutes or so, we'll take a mid-show break, and I just want to apologize. We're still in this soft launch crazy thing I'm doing, so that same graphic is going to get really annoying to us very quickly. But I want to tease something here. We've talked about being in mining, and we can circle back to that. The chat
Yep.
is open if anybody wants to stream anything. I can put it on screen if you want to put it in the chat on YouTube. You do have to be on YouTube, I believe, for my streaming service to pick that up. But we've talked a little bit about Terra. What other avenues can we go into of what your business is working with? As again, I just first of all, I love your hat. If you can lean that in for people to take a look at. I love that hat. That's absolutely great. But I wish I were wearing a hat so I could tip it to you, not only for the suggestion of delta neutral farming on Mir, uh, but also because hat off to you that you created a business around this, that you
Yep.
have you formalized it, that this is an ongoing enterprise for you. And I think that's, I mean, just the entrepreneurial spirit there and identifying opportunity where I think a lot of us, myself included, I'm guilty of this, are just, chasing pumps sometimes, going after that pamp. And you formalized it in a business with a business plan with here's how I'm going to account for it. And I just really want to commend you for that. But tease for us a little bit more of what your business does that we can talk about when we come back in just a couple of minutes.
Yeah. So the business is, as I say, it's crypto only. It is a predominant yield farm business. So it started with yield farming. Goal was to take a capital sum, a set amount of money, invest that into yield farming, take the profits from yield farming, invest that into hardware, and see where we go, basically.
Nice underlying asset that to have there in the hardware.
Yeah, because I mean, GPUs are
if,
worth
if
money,
crypto
right?
goes bust, somebody's still going to want to go play GTA, right? Like you at least know that
Exactly.
you at least have graphics cards that somebody can go and build systems with.
Exactly. You've got even if if everything goes to poo tomorrow, you've still got the underlying hardware that, as a business, you can then say, look, there you go. I'll sell it off. I'll take a loss on it. I've had my money out of it. I've earned something from it,
Yeah.
and away we go. But it's the tax gains between the UK for running a business make it appealing to work or to run it through a business in particular.
So I need to look into a UK business, huh?
Well, I think it's the same as any private business, right? You can offset you pay tax after profits. You pay tax on profits rather than on revenue. whereas personally you pay tax on revenue, right? So
right.
right.
And
so the break there is that you're go on, sorry.
Well, I've promised to myself that I'm not going to say the T word that a lot of Americans are facing right now. TAX Day is coming up in about a week and a half, 2 weeks, something like that. And so it's a little bit later this year because of a weekend. And CJ, you've had to hear me complain so much about the process of doing this as an individual going back. So I've promised I won't say that word, but you're free to say it as much as you want. And it entices me when I think about, there are places I can go that it wouldn't be just as much of a nightmare in the business form as it would be personally. And because I don't do it as a business here, I can't exactly say that it is. But the US is not the most friendly for that. So when we come back, let's talk a little bit more about some of the yield farming. Of course, no financial advice, but see if there's anything that you can tip us off to. I think there are a couple of DeFi opportunities we're both in, and we'll come back in just a minute.
Perfect. See you soon.
If I learn how to work my production studio. This is why we're in a soft launch. Here we go. We'll take a quick break. I like that song. I like that graphic, but there are only so many times I can use it in a row before it's going to drive me absolutely crazy and everyone else, I'm sure. So thanks for indulging me. And I said I wasn't going to say the T word, and the universe heard me. And my buddy, who's an accountant, hit me up with a message right on the break, and I'm like, oh, that
Thanks.
that thing is calling me at some point. So, CJ, again, thanks for joining today. Where we were talking about, or what we were talking about right before the break, was moving into discussing some of the yield farming opportunities. I think this is where you said that's your primary focus. Profits from it go into the hardware to create an asset base. But yield farming, walk us through the landscape. Again, sorry to make this, an interview, a question and answer type thing more than a conversation, but I find it so fascinating. Where should we be looking? No pressure in terms of yield farming. What's doing well for you?
I mean, the best, I guess, isn't the correct term. The most profitable or the highest yield at the moment has been MMF on Cronos chain. So
You're gonna make me cry.
they kind of came out of left field themselves. VVS were on very, very simple on Cronos, which was the first DEX was the leader there, and MMF have just smashed them out the water. And
You're hurting me right now because there was a decision point when the two were vying, and I said, surely VVS with the direct crypto.com backing, surely they're going to pull ahead. And MMF made me look like a complete idiot as I pulled out of there and doubled down on VVS. So I'm certainly glad you're enjoying Mad Meerkat Finance, which is MMF on Cronos, as you said. I love that you're enjoying it. I will go back, but I'm personally concerned that as soon as I step back in, they're going to go chase us back and then tank the whole thing.
The chase indicator.
The chase indicator. It's on Cronos. I tend to be that guy.
MF has been what are they? The ecosystem of forks. Any successful crypto project, they fork it, and the ecosystem has grown rapidly. And the
even when the thing they're forking has crashed, they succeed.
No, yeah, I don't know how or where. I don't know how they're succeeding. I don't know where the funds are coming from, but money is going in, and I guess by creating all these forks, they're generating value, and it all drives back to the core token, which is MMF. So by creating these forks, they are creating value for their token, which is creating more interest and onwards. It's amazing to see, and long may it continue for. And it's interesting to see what they bring next. I know they're a supercharger on Crypto.com at the moment, so it'll be interesting to see what that brings, what attention it brings, and the ultimate Crypto.com listing must follow after this, I assume.
Yeah, I was going to pull up and put something on screen, but I'm trying to remember when MMF launched, because when I pull them up on CoinMarketCap, for instance, it tells me it's way more recent than it was. So I don't know if that's when they began monitoring them or whatnot. But what I wanted to showcase, and I'm not going to be able to do, is just sort of fact that this is a reward token. The MMF token is one that is a reward token, but growing in value. And that's not typically something we see. Typically, we see that you have to just keep multiplying these rewards tokens to even maintain value. Is there any, because I left the Mad Meerkat Finance and went with VVS, as I publicly disclosed, do we know, is there a mechanism that we know that's creating that, or is it something to just kind of watch and see how it plays?
I think it's at the minute anyway. For me, it's a watch and see. They within kind of 2-3 weeks, they had 4 or 5 launch pads in a row.
Okay.
So all 4 or 5 of them were 1,000, 2,000% oversubscribed. Subscribed.
Wow.
Sorry. So that's the demand was there. And the demand for those launch pads shows that the ecosystem was hungry for investment and for the opportunities. So that for me showed that it was a relatively safe bet to look at yielding within. That could all obviously come crashing down at some point, as anything in crypto can. The demand there in the ecosystem, the development in the ecosystem, the projects being released, how oversubscribed they were was impossible to ignore. Right?
Yeah.
Taking it back to what I call home chain Zill. It was going back to Zill stream or stream demand, where the stream was so oversubscribed because the demand was there for what it was, and I think that's where that's at the moment, and with the backing of Crypto.com, the Crypto.com's chain. So it'd be interesting to see where that moves when retail come flooding back in, which we're all told retail aren't in the market at the moment.
Well, and that is interesting. You mentioned, as I say, home planet Zilliqa, my home planet. Cronos is definitely a place I would say that I don't know, should we make a metaverse reference, that I teleport to more often these days, just because of the DeFi focus. And they're both Singapore companies, Zilliqa Research and Crypto.com, drastically different approaches in how they're running their chains. And I know that gets Crypto.com some criticism. Especially there was a concern that, well, they really have two chains. They have a .org chain, and then they have the Cronos chain, which is more for public commerce, well, whatever. But the sheer growth of the Cronos chain has been mind-boggling. Not only with MMF, like you mentioned, and the fact that they port things over, like I believe Savannah is one of them, and various others, but just is Cronos one of the places that you're spending a lot of your time, or do you go back to home-based Zilliqa, or do you branch back out into Binance, or which was really all the rage in 2021? What do you think your breakout is in terms of maximizing your return? Because of course, I'm sure you're not going all in just one place.
Nope.
Or are you?
So no. Diversification is key. And anyone that is just on one chain or just in one protocol or one project, seriously look at where you're invested and look at other opportunities, because it only takes one thing and you're screwed, right?
Yeah.
And it's out of your control. So don't trust everything. Don't go all in is a Hail Mary, but it's not a clever play. In terms of other chains, Fantom, I think Fantom is, for me, the home of DeFi. I think you can't. Cronos is getting
really
there.
even more than, say, Terra or Cronos. Fantom's really your DeFi home.
I think not mine necessarily, but I think the home of DeFi. I think that is Fantom. I mean, that's all it is.
That's what it is. Yeah.
Yeah. And I think that's, you've got Tomb on there and all the subsequent forks on every single chain that's come off of Tomb. You've got brilliant. You've got Liquid Driver, which is a super interesting protocol where you're locking LQDR up and you're getting reward. They use that to basically go and buy other reward tokens, and you get paid out APR against your LQDR. I think that's a super interesting protocol. You've got OXDAO and Solidly and Solid Swap, and be interested to see what happens with that since Andre threw his toys out the pram.
Yeah. I think we had talked about that. I think in the first or second show, so I won't rehash it for anyone who hasn't seen it, but we'll just if anybody does want to know more about it, there we talked about it in the past. Was that as big of a hit as people thought it was going to be? Between the communities of those various protocols picking up and running the protocols, between sort of the copy and paste projects, did that really have as much effect as people thought it was going to have?
It came in a fear phase in the market. So the market was already fearful. A bullish market, and I don't think that would have moved Fantom too much.
In a bullish market, people would have been like, all right, see ya. Been fun.
Yeah, exactly that. In a bullish market, it'd been like, great, someone else has gone. Let's move on. In a middling to negative or to middling to fearful market, people were like, okay, this is, I'm getting out here. And Fantom took the hit for it. But if a chain is only one developer, then you're in trouble, right?
You have problems. Yes.
Yeah.
We've seen that with a number of chains, and that leads me to ask. So Fantom is sort of, would you say Fantom is your home base then, to use just you're trying to put some weird terminology on it?
It's difficult. Zilliqa for me has been and always probably will be home.
You're like me. It's home planet, right? But it doesn't necessarily mean that's where I have my DeFi base at any given moment, right? If you will.
Yeah. I call Zilliqa the training wheels chain. I think a lot of people that get into Zilliqa Zilliqa is their first experience of crypto.
I think that's a good view, and that's a really good. It's a really good chain for that.
Yeah, exactly. This, and I think Amrit used to mention it as well, that look, we didn't think the community was ready, which is, when at first view, is super condescending, right? But then you
there were a few head scratches on that, like, what are you saying about us? Come on.
Yeah, exactly that. And then you look around and you're like, okay, yeah, he's probably not far wrong, but
and I think that's the dichotomy, though. Yeah, that's the dichotomy of it, though, is being from home planet Zilliqa. I think it was a lot of people's first experience. I think you and I don't share that. It became our home after a certain point, I believe, because you were also in Ethereum prior, if I remember. I was as well. As Ethereum was really my first real start, other than like what everybody did back in 2010, 2011. And let me kick up my laptop and get a few Bitcoin, which we've all lost and we're all crying over. But, Ethereum was really my first taste of smart contracts and DeFi and mining. So I'm not trying to harp on Fantom either, but what struck me as interesting about that viewpoint in Fantom from your business perspective is that it almost makes me follow up and ask, well, with Fantom's focus on all of these chains and a lot of the things on other chains being forks, do you find yourself needing to look at, I'm taking a look at the top 10 here, if you wonder where I'm getting my cheat list from: Binance, Solana, Cardano's initial attempts at doing something, Avalanche, right? Do you find yourself needing or wanting to be there as much, or are you fairly covered between Fantom and Terra and Cronos and some of these, top 50 chains?
Solana, I think, somewhere that is super interesting. I think I haven't personally experienced the ecosystem yet. I have some Solana, but I haven't gone and delved into the ecosystem as of yet. Avalanche, 100%. Trader Joe and the farms on there are pretty good. The new VE Joe to boost your staking rewards, I think, is very good. Kind of node projects on there been burnt jumping into, but hey, everyone has done somewhere, I guess. And a lot of games coming out on there as well. There's Krabad, which looks interesting. There was Frog that's just launched as well that looked interesting. There's Avalanche is definitely ascending as a chain, isn't it? Really, it's on the way up. But there's Avalanche, Solana. There's opportunities everywhere, right? As much as we're not early in DeFi, we are still definitely early, and there are still opportunities. I
love hearing that from someone who's made this his business, right? And that's really reassuring, I think, for a lot of people, but inspirational for those of us who have been around for a moment as well, because nobody knows everything in this space. And what happens, look, I've been there, I'm probably there now, who knows? We get bogged down in something we're doing and we focus so intently to learn it that next thing you know, 2, 3, 4 projects have already come and gone. And what I do see, unfortunately, this is one of the downsides of interfacing with, trying to share some of these messages of emerging technology and blockchain and crypto. One of the very few downsides of that is people feel very insecure, and we all do it. I do it too. And I start to think, oh, I just had this amazing run. I found this thing early and it did well, and now it's done. And I think I'm never going to find it again. Right? Like it's like being in middle school again, and being a teenager and going, oh, I just broke up with my girlfriend. I will never find love again. Right. It's almost that philosophy, and anything we can do to get out of it. So thank you for sharing that.
It's the constant
In
hunt for a
terms
dopamine hit,
of,
right?
I'm sorry?
It's constant hunt for a dopamine hit. It leaves you sitting there going, "Wait, what am I going to do in life now? I'm hitting 1,000% APR now.
Now what? Right.
Yeah.
And at some point, I have no idea when, at some point, if this show ever makes it out of the soft launch, meaning if I can ever create more intro videos, if we ever make it out of a soft launch for real, I absolutely know at some point I need to invite some clinical psychologist or therapist or somebody onto the show, because I don't know too many people in crypto who haven't felt that experience of exactly what you're talking about. I'm getting, I'm doubling my money every couple of weeks. Great. We don't do that all the time, but while you're in it, there becomes this existentialism of what now? What now? Like if this were permanent, if I could do this permanently and found every single opportunity, it's like everything I've been chasing is now removed as a goal, removed as the carrot, and it is a head trip. How has that hit you, or has running this as a business helped keep you centered? Because you're seeing things on a profit and loss statement, you're seeing things in quarterly results. Does that help keep you grounded even more than being an individual, or is it still head trippy of, oh no, are we gonna find the next thing?
It's still it's head trippy, right? I think it also, you become numb to it. The more you learn to experience it, the more you learn to embrace it. Bitcoin's down 10% today. Right? Who cares? It'll be up again 15% in a month.
Right.
That's difficult, and that's even if you're overexposed, which I think, everyone says only invest what you can afford to lose, but I think the majority of people are overexposed. Let's be honest. People put in more than they can realistically afford.
Yeah, and in fairness, because we've seen people and the result of what they got by doing that, and I was massively overexposed at a point relative to my life. I got lucky. I got very lucky in the sense that it wasn't taken from me. But a few different moves, right? Even in the same ecosystem, knowing the same people, knowing the same projects, a few different moves, a few button clicks at a millisecond off, and that's a very different story for me today. And I mean, I've sat in the same, you and I have sat in the same chat with people who we might be saying, oh, just I made a little bit of money right now, and they're like, what? Like I just lost thousands. And you're like, what the hell went wrong for you? And you realize that statement, religion aside, you realize the statement there, but for the grace of God go I, is very true in crypto sometimes.
Yeah. And I think the Luna launch being the fastest first being the key driver to that.
Lunar token's a great token. I love you, Lunar Crush.
Agreed.
But I know a lot of people
the launch was
who
fun.
do not like that token.
The first launch was fun. But yes, agreed. There was
I imagine a lot of people don't know what we're talking about there, though, because that is sort of an obscure situation that you and I just both happened to walk into the same room and go, oh hi, you're here, and we shared an experience there that I think a lot of people wouldn't have even been present for, like they are on Terra or Zilliqa or wherever else. But it was I will say that that was, I'll release some personal information. That was actually the biggest single day move ever, and that includes my businesses that I've run. So we love you, Lunar Crush. I've kept that private because there are people who I know didn't fare so well, and they're like, I don't want you to know that.
It's market dynamics, right? Someone's got to lose for someone to win. As harsh as it is, That's
Yeah, how did you have to? I mean, I had to learn that lesson the hard way quite a few times. There were things I went after, and you start thinking, well, I know what's going to happen. I'm getting good at this, right? We start to fool ourselves in that way, and then, phew, right? Just you watch wealth that if it were fiat, you would never go and risk that. You would never take that to Vegas and risk it. But in crypto, you think, wow, I'm getting good at this. I know what I'm doing, and phew, just watch it evaporate.
It's just numbers on screen. It's not actually
Yeah.
It's not actually funds, right? Until it is.
A couple of questions I want to talk about because I'm very fascinated in the business approach to this rather than the individual. I don't think enough people are doing that. I hope this inspires me and others to consider that approach more than individual investing. But where do you stand in terms of, you briefly mentioned this before, but staking nodes? What's your thought on staking nodes? Do you incorporate those in your current portfolio, if you will, for returns, or are you viewing the potential risk of we don't know what could happen there? Is that risk just too much for your investment strategy right now?
Actual nodes is somewhere that I would like to move into and start operating more. So I
Maybe
think
like a Bitcoin Lightning node or something like that, where you're actually a node operator.
Yeah, exactly that. And like research as well is an interesting one on the kind of a decentralized search engine side of things. Actual nodes, and that is, I think, a key differentiator. Actual nodes, not node
Actual
projects.
nodes, as opposed to, by the way, as opposed to nodes as a service, we're talking about here. Like, I think Strong is probably the market leader in that case.
Yeah, node in a inverted commas as a service / Ponzi as a service.
Yeah. So, I mean, I know that statement may not necessarily win us a lot of friends. We both know a lot of people in Strong, well, and in other places, and that's fine. I'm not in those for the same reason that I'm very interested in the technology behind. I know we kind of laugh when people say that, but I am here for the tech first and foremost, and everything else is icing on the cake. I mean, I have my day job I report to, and that's my day job. I'm here for the tech, and I've held off on. But right, like, is this something where even though you and I seem to have a similar view on this, could you foresee yourself saying, you know what, profit's been good this quarter? If it has been, profit's been good this quarter, let me just go ahead and grab, one of these 5 different types of nodes and just add it in and see what happens. Is that something you would consider, or is it just, no, I want the hardware node. I want the hardware.
It's the tokenomics is key for me.
Yeah.
When a node project that it's inflating, look, where's the token going? What's its inflation schedule? What's the likelihood for the demand to continue on this token to sustain the current price plus inflation? When and I have been burned by this, so I'm speaking from experience. I'm not speaking as I hate Strong, I hate others. I not a Strong node, but I had another node of a fork of Strong, which has had the same, or had some other nodes which are the fork of Strong, and the same things happened to that as has happened to Strong ultimately. When your token value is, or the growth of your token is derived solely from others buying in, you're on a slippery slope.
Yeah, and we see, man, there were literal games of that on Binance, I remember, where it was basically promoted as such, like, you're buying early, other people are going to buy in, and you're hoping that more, right? You're hoping you're early on this trail than late. There are some of those I have. I don't even know. I didn't put them with my crypto notes or anything like that, and I literally wrote calendar reminders. In 1 year, go check this site. In 3 years, go check this site. Hope they're still around. Hope I can get my initial out. I remember I didn't do them because I believe in them. I did them because I wanted to. I was going to create some content around them, and I thought, this isn't really something I want to promote or bring attention to. But yeah, no, I definitely understand that there have been some that have lost significant value and cost people a lot of money. And it does answer the question to a degree that you and I have both shared in the past. There are moments, and you expressed this a moment ago. Sometimes it's like, well, where is this money coming from? And in the moments that we get wrecked in an exchange or in a trade, I think we realize this is where the money's coming from.
Yeah.
Do you think that crypto, specifically crypto, as opposed to blockchain or distributed ledger technologies on their own, can crypto evolve out of this to where there don't have to be so many losers to be such big gainers? Can we level this off at a good, reasonable return rate? Is that possible?
Yes, but it needs to mature as a asset class. At the moment, no. But and that's, I guess, where the regulation call comes in, right? That's, you can't, people putting their life savings in getting wrecked isn't a sustainable model.
Right. Please don't do that.
Yeah, exactly.
That is financial advice. Please do not
That is
put your
definitely
life savings into one investment.
Mhm.
Which is odd, because I know a whole host of people who do that with stocks. They go to work for a company, they get stock from that company, they only buy stock in that company. It happens all the time. And I tell them, just like I'll tell anyone, this is financial advice. Diversify your portfolio.
Yep. So it's both crypto's beauty and its Achilles heel.
Yeah.
You can, by being able to get infinitely wrecked, you can make infinite gains.
I know this is going to be,
that has to even.
I want people to be careful of that, to be cognizant of that. And this will be an awkward cutoff, but I got so involved in this that I didn't realize we're hitting our hour right now. So CJ, I'm sure we could talk forever and ever. I actually have a whole list of other things, but we do need to wrap now. CJ, thanks so much for joining me. I hope you can come back at some point in the near future. We'll talk more about yield farming, how things are changing, where people can go to see some of the new cool stuff, talk about how your business is unfolding, new things you get into. And again, congratulations on taking that step and being a real pioneer and leader in transforming individual investments into a business with assets that's invested in crypto, and that really helps solidify the entire ecosystem. Thank you for that.
I've enjoyed it. Thank you for having me.
All right. Well, everybody, I'm going to go ahead and sign off, and we'll see you next time.